Lebanon's president's named a prime minister. The seat had been vacant for 2 months ever since Saad Hariri resigned under pressure from the street. What started as grievances over the state of the economy turned quickly to complaints over management, mismanagement, corruption, and a call for wholesale change in the sectarian power-sharing system in Lebanon that critics feel makes the country's leaders unaccountable. For more, let's cross now to Beirut and correspondent Layla Molana-Allen. So the president, Michel Aoun, naming 60-year-old Hassan Diab to the post. What are the reactions?
Reactions so far not hugely positive. Just behind me a few minutes ago, a group of a couple of hundred protesters left. They'd gathered here in Martyr Square to head towards Parliament and complain over this appointment. Now, the appointment only happened an hour and a half ago. One protester I spoke to said the problem is he only comes from one side, this person, and he has been appointed by the old political establishment. He's not the right person to lead this country. He's not who we need now. Now, the idea had been that Hassan Diab, there have been a couple of other people potentially in line to be the new prime minister over the last couple of months. And the point with Hassan Diab was that he is mostly a political outsider. What protesters have been calling for is somebody who's not part of the entrenched political establishment. He's a professor at the American University of Beirut. He has once been in government as education minister, but that, of course, very closely tied to his job, and he's not particularly allied to any other governments in the past. So that's why people felt that he might be a more palatable candidate. The problem is he was only put forward by just over half of the MPs today. He got 69 votes out of a possible 128, and nearly 50 of those MPs simply abstained. The sectarian power-sharing system in Lebanon says that the Prime Minister must be a Sunni. He got this position with almost no Sunni MPs voting for him.
Yeah, and could he still make good on that wish that protesters have, which is a prime minister that's named by the current president, but then has a technocratic cabinet?
That's possible. That's the big debate that we've been seeing over recent weeks, whether there will be technocrats. Who those technocrats will be, of course, there are many people who have tried to put forward as technocrats but actually have political ties. What percentage of that cabinet will be technocrats? That's all yet to come out. But the big problem with Hassan Diab, the first thing he said this evening from his house after he was appointed was that we must take the wishes of the protesters into consideration. It's very important for us to work with them as we move forward. But as I said, the fact that he has really only support of half the parliament is a huge problem. Now, how this has played out, essentially many protesters here are calling for an end to the sectarian system in Lebanon. The way the power sharing system works in parliament is meant to force them into coalition government and to all work together. But what's happened today is an alliance of Hezbollah and Amal, the two main Shia parties, and the FPM, the main Christian party, of whom President Michel Aoun is part. They all voted, as did their proxies. This is an alliance that's existed since 2005. They all voted for Hassan Diab. But the main Sunni party, former Prime Minister Saad Haridi's party, the Future Movement, and other parties that support his alliance didn't. And they just didn't name anyone after Saad Hariri pulled out yesterday and said, I won't be a candidate to come back. What that means is essentially we've got a Prime Minister who is completely on one side of the game and is not supported by, as I said, really any of the Sunni MPs in Parliament or any of that other half of Parliament, that alliance around Saad Hariri. And so whatever he does, they're likely to step forward and say he does not represent all of us. This is not a legitimate prime ministership. The other issue is that because he's so closely aligned to Hezbollah and that alliance, it's very likely that now we're going to see some serious sanctions coming in on the Lebanese government. For a long time since last year's election, the Israeli government's been saying Hezbollah's done so well in this election, they're so strong in this parliament that essentially the Lebanese government is in fact Hezbollah. And Saad Hariri has always said, no, he's very popular in the West, Saad Hariri. He's always said, no, we are the Lebanese, we're separate from Hezbollah. Now that the Prime Minister is so closely allied to Hezbollah, it's very likely we'll see further sanctions from the Americans and great unpopularity for Lebanon as a result. And lots of Lebanese here very scared about that worsening the situation rather than improving it.
Hey, Layla, just very briefly, it's been 2 months now since the start of the street protests. How's the movement doing?
How's the movement doing? People are exhausted. They're exhausted emotionally, obviously physically. People have been out almost every day protesting, but really very emotionally exhausted, a lot of the protesters here. One of the big things was this constant feeling that every time it seemed that there would be a new prime minister, once again they would pull out and they'd say no, Saad Hariri is the only option. Really the biggest victory for protesters was the fact that after less than 2 weeks of protests on October 29th, they managed to get him to step down. And they've been waiting for a new government, a new cabinet, something to change. And they all feel that really what's happened is that a political game has been played. The reason Hassan Diab has been chosen is because he's palatable to people, not because of his skills, not because of his plan for the country. And the economy is worsening every day. People are getting to the point now where they can't get any money out of the banks because of unofficial capital controls. They can't feed their families. It's incredibly cold here now. They can't pay for heating. Snow is starting to block all the roads. It was protesters blocking them before. Now it's snow and floods. People really are on edge, and they're turning around. They're saying, we've been out in the streets demanding these things for weeks, for months now. No one is listening to us, and our lives are getting worse by the day.
Molana-Allen reporting live from Beirut. Many thanks for that update.